Former president got a loan from a repo man. And not just any run-of-the-mill repo man. His company is known for what they do is they fake their caller ID so it looks like they're calling from a local pizza place, and then they pounce. I would love to be there to see Trump waiting at the door for a meat lover supreme, only to find out his tower has been repossessed next door today. Please remember, all of these lawsuits, charges, and indictments that have been brought against me have been orchestrated and coordinated by crooked Joe Biden, which I have to say I find particularly upsetting because crooked was his nickname for Hillary. All right? It was Crooked Hillary, and you can't just reassign a nickname. You can't have Magic Johnson and Magic Larry Bird. It doesn't work like that. This is just lazy Donald Trumping is what it is. I know, you know what?
Last night, Jimmy Kimmel took to his show with a fiery monologue aimed at the disgraced former president, Donald Trump. Kimmel was not one to hold back as he dove into the topic of Trump's mounting legal troubles, particularly the hush money case and the recent gag order imposed by a judge. Despite being embroiled in a sea of legal issues, Trump has not ceased his online rants, which Kimmel likened to those of a madman off his meds. With a mischievous glint in his eye, Kimmel turned his attention to Trump's financial woes, which he referred to as a bit of a financial pickle. The self-proclaimed billionaire and noted grifter extraordinaire had to scrape together a whopping $175 million bond to stay out of jail. Kimmel found the fact that Trump had to turn to a specialty insurance company run by a billionaire known as the king of subprime car loans to be particularly amusing. As Kimmel continued his mockery, the audience erupted in laughter. It was clear that Kimmel was relishing the opportunity to poke fun at Trump's latest financial fiasco.
Somewhere there's a loan officer just got called into his boss's office. You loaned $175 million to who?
The late-night host introduced a man, leaving viewers on the edge of their seats wondering who or what he could be referring to.
This is the man with the good sense to loan a lot of money to Donald Trump. There he is, the next owner of Mar-a-Lago, billionaire Don Hankey, also known as the king of the subprime car loans. Don Hankey, he sells loans to people with less than exceptional credit. Forbes said his company repossesses about 250 cars a day. In
conclusion, Kimmel's monologue was a scathing indictment of Trump's legal and financial troubles.
Former president got a loan from a repo man. And not just any run-of-the-mill repo man. His company is known for what they do is they fake their caller ID so it looks like they're calling from a local pizza place, and then they pounce.
The late-night host held nothing back as he savagely roasted the disgraced former president, leaving his audience in stitches. It remains to be seen what other comedic nuggets Kimmel will unearth in the days and weeks to come.
I would love to be there to see Trump waiting at the door for a meat lover supreme, only to find out his tower has been repossessed next door.
The story of Don Hankey, also known as the king of subprime car loans, is one that is both fascinating and concerning. Hankey's business model involves lending money to individuals who are considered high-risk borrowers, such as those with poor credit scores or low incomes. While this may seem like a noble endeavor at first glance, the reality is that Hankey's loans often come with exorbitant interest rates and hidden fees that can leave borrowers in a cycle of debt for years. Recently, Hankey's loan officer was called into his boss's office to discuss a loan of $175 million that had been granted to none other than Donald Trump. The irony of the situation was not lost on late-night talk show host Jimmy Kimmel, who gleefully joked about the once mighty Trump being reduced to begging for cash from a man who made his fortune preying on the poor and desperate. The audience roared with laughter as Kimmel painted a picture of Trump's opulent Florida estate being hauled away by a tow truck, a fate that seemed almost too delicious to bear, given the president's previous boasts of being too big to fail. However, Kimmel was quick to point out that even the most powerful and wealthy individuals can fall when they are buried in debt and legal troubles. The The reality is that Hankey's subprime car loans have been the subject of much controversy over the years, with critics arguing that they exploit vulnerable individuals who have few other options for obtaining financing. While Hankey may have amassed a fortune through his lending practices, the human cost of his business model cannot be ignored. As for Trump, his financial woes are just one of many issues that have plagued his presidency. From allegations of collusion with foreign powers to a seemingly endless string of scandals and controversies, it is clear that the current occupant of the White House is far from infallible. Whether or not he will be able to weather the storm of his mounting debts and legal troubles remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: the story of Don Hankey and the subprime car loan industry is one that will continue to spark debate and controversy for years to come. Throughout his entire life, Donald Trump has been a master of deception, using a never-ending shell game to stay one step ahead of the law and his creditors. He seems to thrive on the thrill of the chase, always looking for his next big score, regardless of the consequences. But what's most interesting about Trump is not his ability to evade justice, but his complete lack of shame or remorse for his actions. Despite the mounting evidence against him, Trump continues to deny any wrongdoing and lash out at his critics. Just hours after posting bail for his latest fraud charges in New York, he was back on his social media platform, Truth Social, ranting about how the charges were a fabricated conspiracy orchestrated by his political enemies. It's ironic that a man who has spent his entire life breaking the law and getting away with it is now accusing others of corruption and deceit. But that's just typical of Trump's narcissistic personality. He believes that he is always right, and anyone who disagrees with him is either a liar or a loser. In recent years, Trump has become increasingly detached from reality, spending his days golfing, spreading lies on social media, and hawking merchandise to his loyal followers. He seems to have lost touch with the real world, living in a bubble of his own making, where he is always the hero and everyone else is the villain. But despite his delusions of grandeur, Trump's luck may finally be running out. With multiple investigations and legal challenges looming over him, he may soon find himself facing the consequences of his actions. And while he may continue to deny and deflect, the truth will eventually catch up with him. In the meantime, we can only watch in amazement as Trump continues to act like a whiny little baby, throwing tantrums and lashing out at anyone who dares to challenge him. But as comedian Jimmy Kimmel pointed out, even Trump's pathetic attempts at humor, like his fake game show bit, can't hide the fact that he is a desperate and pathetic figure clinging to his fading fame and fortune. During a recent comedy show, Jimmy Kimmel had the audience in stitches with his hilarious impression of Alex Trebek. As he answered his own question, the crowd erupted with laughter at Kimmel's quick wit and spot-on delivery. However, the joke was more than just a simple bit of entertainment. It was a perfect encapsulation of Trump's entire persona, a cheating, lying con artist who will say anything to avoid accountability. Isn't that what Trump's whole life has been? One big game of Jeopardy where the categories are things like fraud, corruption, and narcissism. And he always seems to have the right answer. It's almost comical how he manages to evade justice time and time again, despite overwhelming evidence of his wrongdoing. But as the walls continue to close in around him, even Trump can't deny the mounting legal troubles he faces. Still, he finds time for his favorite pastime, being a creep. It's almost as if he prioritizes his sleaziness over everything else, even when the stakes are high. Kimmel couldn't help but marvel at this twisted sense of priorities, even as he expressed a mix of amusement and disgust. But let's not forget the importance of reaching out to both sides of the political spectrum. While it's easy to roast Trump in front of a crowd of diehard progressives, it's equally important to make sure his most loyal supporters witness every glorious second of his humiliation. After all, what's the point of making fun of him if his staunchest fans don't get to see it? So let's all stick around until the very end and watch the full video. Together, we can make sure that our message reaches far and wide, and that everyone, from the staunchest Trump supporter to the most ardent progressive, gets to witness the downfall of one of the most corrupt and narcissistic politicians in modern history. As the audience members squirmed in their seats, Jimmy Kimmel continued to poke fun at former President Donald Trump's daily routine. It was clear that Kimmel was not a fan of the former president, and he was not holding back on his criticisms. Can you imagine what it must be like to live in the White House with Donald Trump? Kimmel asked rhetorically. I mean, the man spends all day ranting and raving, spray tanning, and golfing. It's like he's trying to relive his college years or something. The audience chuckled uncomfortably, knowing that Kimmel's words were hitting a little too close to home, but Kimmel was just getting started. I mean, have you seen that guy's face? Kimmel continued, "It's like he's been dipped in orange paint. And don't even get me started on that hair. It's like a bad toupee and a bird's nest had a baby." The audience groaned at Kimmel's words, but they couldn't help but laugh at the image he was painting. It was clear that Kimmel had a gift for sarcasm and satire, and he was using it to full effect. But Kimmel wasn't just making fun of Trump's appearance and daily routine. He was also taking aim at the former president's behavior, which he saw as immature and petulant. "When has Trump ever acted like an adult?" Kimmel asked incredulously. "The man is facing serious legal consequences, and he's acting like a spoiled child who didn't get his way." The audience nodded in agreement, knowing that Kimmel was speaking the truth. It was clear that Trump was not a typical president, and his behavior was causing people to question his fitness for office. But despite his flaws, Trump still had a devoted following, and he was not afraid to use his platform to spread his message of fear and treason. "If we don't win on November 5th, Trump warned in a voice dripping with manufactured urgency, "the country will be in grave danger. We must do everything in our power to make sure that the right people are in charge." The audience shook their heads in disbelief, knowing that Trump's words were nothing more than fear, mongering, and propaganda. But they also knew that there were millions of people out there who believed every word that Trump said, and that was a scary thought indeed. The future of America seems to be uncertain as we approach the 2024 election, and the current political climate is volatile, and the division between the two major political parties is only growing wider. It is disheartening to see that the very foundations of our democracy are being threatened, and it is not just because of Trump's antics. The pandemic has exposed the weaknesses in our healthcare system and the inequalities in our society. The economic fallout has left many struggling to make ends meet, and the government's response has been inadequate at best. The racial tensions that have been simmering for years have come to a boil, and the systemic racism that is ingrained in our society is being exposed for all to see. In the midst of all this, Trump continues to sow discord and division. He has no interest in uniting the country or solving the real problems that we face. His only concern is keeping his base angry and afraid so that they will continue to support him and fund his legal defense. It is a cynical and dangerous game, but one that he has played for years. The Republican Party has become complicit in this game, and their lack of action in holding Trump accountable is a betrayal of their duty to the American people. They have become more concerned with maintaining their power and catering to their base than with upholding the principles of democracy. As we approach the 2024 election, the stakes could not be higher. The future of our democracy is at risk, and it is up to the American people to decide whether we will continue down this path of division and chaos, or whether we will come together to address the real problems that we face and build a more just and equitable society. In today's world, it seems like conspiracy theories and misinformation are spreading more rapidly than ever before. It's easy to feel overwhelmed and powerless in the face of so much chaos and confusion. However, there are some who are using their platform to shed light on the absurdity of it all and inspire others to speak out. Comedians like Jimmy Kimmel are using humor to tackle serious issues and engage their audiences in important conversations. By making us laugh, they are able to break down barriers and connect with people who might otherwise tune out. But laughter alone isn't enough to make a difference. It's up to all of us to stay informed, stay engaged, and hold our leaders accountable. The future of our country depends on our willingness to speak truth to power and demand better from those in charge. It's not always easy, and it can be exhausting to constantly call out lies and corruption. But if we look to brave voices like Kimmel for inspiration, we can find the strength to keep fighting. Humor can be a powerful tool for sparking outrage and stirring people to action, but it's only one part of the equation. We also need to be informed, passionate, and willing to take a stand. We can't let the punchline be the death of truth itself. We must stay vigilant and never give up on this beautiful, messy, maddening experiment in democracy we call America.